Good morning, Jackson, Mississippi, and all surrounding areas. You have tuned in to the free-range human show of choice. Your daily dose of reality radio starts now here on 103.9 WYAB. We are live in the 103.9 studios. And if you want to reach us on the Mac Hike of Flowood phone line at 601-879-0002. And if you prefer to text, as I've been saying, that's become a very popular means of communication on this show, 769-241-1944. And if you're on the Twitterverse, I am there at SaveJXN, that's Save Jackson, or just type in Clay Edwards. There should only be one. I feel sorry for the other poor soul if there's another one.
Right.
I'm friends with
He's
two.
He's getting all your hate mail. And
I'm friends with two other Clay Edwards on Facebook.
Huh.
And, well, I may not be friends with them on my current Facebook page, but the one that got yeeted, I was friends with two others. And I actually worked with one of them one time, and I've always felt sorry for those guys.
Right. Well, I mean, it's when people decide to start trashing the Clay Edwards that it misfires sometimes. I have a friend that has a somewhat common name, and there's a famous jockey that has the same name. And so he gets tweeted horse racing stuff all the time. And he's like, but I'm not that guy. It's just...
Because, I've never gotten hate mail pointed at them, but I've gotten hate mail pointed at me, so I'm sure they've gotten some too.
I'm sure.
Well, look, so we got THERESE APEL back in the studio from assignment in Chicago.
That's right.
The Interdiction
Conference.
Is it interdiction or introduction?
Interdiction.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've been saying it wrong. Interdiction Conference up there in Chicago. And we are joined in studio by arm wrestling champ and all around big dude here. Very rarely do I look at somebody and say, that's a big guy. Mr. Wayne Withers. Well, here you go, Wayne.
How you doing, guys?
How you doing, brother?
Good. Glad to have you here.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Yeah, welcome to the show. Wayne reached out, he had a chance meeting with a Budweiser guy at a grocery store, and he was like, man, you ought to go on the Clay Edwards show. He found me on Instagram and said, hey, somebody said I should come on your show, and told me a little backstory, and I was like, yeah, sounds great.
Yep.
And because I've actually been watching, I stumbled across some arm wrestling on YouTube a while back, and they were doing it down at Brewski's in Hattiesburg, and this thing had like 6 million views.
Yeah.
I was like, somebody's watching this stuff. Maybe I should pay attention here. I actually reached out to my buddy Jake that does a sports show, or at least I thought I should reach out to him. I don't know if I did or not. I was like, hey man, this is pretty neat. You should check this out. Maybe these guys, this feels like a good thing for sports radio. But hey, I will gladly do it here.
Yeah.
I will gladly do it here. So Wayne, it's great to have you. We're going to get into Wayne's story here in the next segment and kind of catch up with him, see what's going on in his world and how he got to where he's at. And I think it's wildly interesting to see what leads people down the different paths to get them to where they're at. I know my story's a strange one at best and have ended up doing conservative talk radio. So, THERESE.
Yes.
You picked a great week to go out of town. Nothing happened around here.
Oh, I could tell it was just dead by how much stress I had every time my phone went off because something else was happening.
I mean, it's like you don't root for bad things to happen, but if you're going to be in the news business, you would prefer to be there when they do.
Right, exactly. And the thing is, like, what we had last week was all fairly sensational, too. And of course, you had that situation with Napoleon Edwards getting arrested, and that's somebody that we've all known in the media circles, and he's had beef with all of us at some point or another, but you just didn't expect that to happen. I mean, it may not have been surprising if he is found guilty, but it may have been. It was a shock in the way of like, wow, that happened. Well,
what a blaze of glory. Well, I don't even know if you're going to call it glory, a blaze of utter failure to go out in, if that's the way it all unwinds for him.
Right.
I mean, because this guy made a living attacking other media personalities.
Right. And now here he is at our mercy.
Yeah. Good luck with that. I mean, everybody showed up for that hearing.
Yeah. Well, and that's, of course, I was in Chicago and I was like, man, I don't even want to, like, I was so disappointed I couldn't be there that I didn't even want to look at it.
Did you see the video of the picture of David Archie and Kelsey Johnson in there?
Yes.
Like his two biggest rivals.
And he's just staring them down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Polo has his things, and I don't understand him all the time. I feel really a lot of compassion for the family of Robert Davis, and I hope that that loss is not usurped by the sensationalism of it being Polo that pulled this stuff off.
Well, we've been sharing everything we can about Bobby. I think is what they refer to him as. And when they get ready to do a fundraiser, when that point comes, if it comes, we'll be here to do anything we can to assist.
Absolutely.
With that. I mean, and look, I came and did a show that Tuesday. So I found out about 5:00 that Monday morning. I believe I texted you. I texted a couple other people. I was like, but it ain't confirmed yet, so I don't want to say anything.
I'm so sorry. That's my phone.
That's fine. So I was like, well, I don't want to say anything. And so I did that whole show, but we had the mud bug thing to talk about that. So that ran the show. But in the back of my mind, I was not really all there for that show. And it was one of our best shows.
Right.
But because of knowing what I'd heard that morning, my mind just wasn't in it. Yep. So as soon as I get off the air, the news starts to break by the time we get back to Flowood. And my phone, I'm surprised it still works. It melted like a nuclear reactor.
Right. Well, and that was kind of the thing. I had people reach out to me, too, and like, you remember that time that he called you a racist and that he called you all these things? And I was like, I do, because I thought we were friends before that. And then all of a sudden I'm hearing what a racist I am because I started my own business and I don't make up stories about the cops.
Well, he did the same thing to me over the summer.
Yeah.
And I just ignored it at the time. I was like, it'll come back around where I'll get my chance, but I'm not gonna be goaded into an online argument so we can use my 30,000 followers to get his up.
Right.
And I was like, I'm not going to do that, and I'm not going to bring any attention to it. Well, now, so with that said, most people didn't see it. So when I went on the offensive the other day, it was like, wasn't that your boy? I'm like, no. He made a conscious decision that I wasn't his boy back over the summer when he decided to start calling. All I did was post a picture of some cars blocking Capitol Street, where they just had another shootout, by the way.
Right.
So hindsight's 20/20, but who was right?
Right. Well, and the other thing, too, is, and I want to treat him with some modicum of respect here because, none of us thinks we're going to be the one that goes and shoots somebody. No. None of us thinks we're going to be the ones in the headlines. And it's a different situation. Polo's a different personality. But to me, there is this feeling of, we were all at some point friends with him. And at some point, he decided to turn on us. And I think that's where objectivity on my part has become paramount because, I could have feelings about this one way or the other if I wanted to, but it's just instead I just choose like, wow, that happened.
Well, innocent until proven guilty, and
right.
And I still haven't attacked him personally, and I'm not going to. But I'm not gonna handle this with kid gloves either. But I got on here Tuesday, and I said, hey, look, let's just address the elephant in the room. I used to do shows with this guy.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be sitting in this desk if he hadn't took me under his wing to do those shows and kind of show me, hey, here's how you do this. You got a big following. You should be taking advantage of it doing this. I will forever be grateful of that regardless of the outcome of this trial. But it doesn't change that he decided at some point that none of that mattered. And I'm going to roll Clay under the bus for a little bit of social media clout.
Right. Well, and I have to say, I remember one time somebody passed me a tip because it was a case that Polo was saying he had all the best sources and he was going to, break the news and whatever. So one of the people working on the case called me and said, I want you to know this is going to happen because I'm so tired of Napoleon's mouth. And then it wasn't too long after that, I guess, that, he and I kind of, made friends. But I never, except for maybe once somebody sent me one of his videos and said, start watching it like minute 10:25. Long story short, when Tyree Jones said that about we're coming down several rows, I hate to say I was in the dark. I was like, that's a weird phrase to use because that's how unfamiliar I was with anything Polo had done. So
that was great. And I ran into Tyree at the Grip and Grin Wednesday and got a good laugh with him. But it was hey, look, man, he settled some things about Tyree during that election.
Oh yeah,
that. I'm guessing that he's really hoping he gets to stay in Clinton and not have to go to Hinds County. Of course, right. Tyree's a good, fair, and balanced man. I'm sure he wouldn't treat him any differently. But I would, if it's me, I'd be weary about wanting to go to that man's house after all the things I said about that man. He ain't going to get no VIP treatment.
Right.
So I think we can establish that. All right, so look, man, we're going to take a break a little early this time, come back, reset, and get started with Mr. Wayne Withers and get to hear his story about breaking arms, man. I challenged him to an arm wrestling thing as soon as we walked in. And
he said he was scared.
He said let's do it. And I'm like, no, I was just kidding. I was just kidding. Be careful who you call out. They may accept the challenge. Right. All right, you're listening to the Clay Edwards Show. We'll be right back on 103.9 WYAB.
Yeah, sounds good.
America, you love your country, so it goes without saying that you also love your ride. And Auto Armour in Flowood wants to help you make that ride shine. Auto Armour in Flowood is Central Mississippi's premier automotive detail and ceramic coating shop, servicing any type of vehicle, including ATVs, boats, and more. Need just a quick detail or paint correction? Auto Armour can make it happen. But if you're set to hit the road in a blaze of glory while flying the old red, white, and blue, Auto Armour should be your first and last call to give your ride a full ceramic coating. Auto Armour is locally owned and operated by the loud and proud American patriot Clay Edwards. Auto Armour also proudly backs the blue, all military and first responders. So don't forget to ask for your discount. Call 601-260-0858. 601-260-0858. Or stop in today, fellow Americans. Auto Armour is located at 4394 Mangum Drive in Flowood. Online at AutoArmourMS.com. Auto Armour, unapologetically American.
All right, welcome back into the Clay Edwards Show. We are live here in the 103.9 WYAB studios, and this segment is going to be brought to you by the Mississippi Karters Association. Look, their next race is coming up sooner than you may think. I believe I got the date right here. It is May 21st out there at Buddy Butts Park right there in Jackson. They had a great race this, I think 2 weekends ago or last weekend, whenever it was. So looking forward to having everybody out. For more information, you can check them out at Mississippi Karters Association on Facebook or MISSkarting.com. You can also, if you're looking to get into the sport or you anything like that, you need carts, parts, or accessories, get with Miss Christy Kendall over at DriveYourLine.com, and they are on Facebook as well at Drive Your Line LLC. And they will get you going in the right direction. That's Mississippi Karters Association and Drive Your Line, sponsors of the Clay Edwards Show. All right, man. So I've been excited about this for a few days.
Yep.
We have got Mr. Wayne Withers in here, and this is a intimidating man right here. Let me tell you, he is an arm wrestling champ. He's a big dude. He was sitting here talking during the break about some of the ways he trains. And, one of the ways you can work on your grip and build your forearms is you put the straight bar behind your back and you do the rolls.
Yeah.
And I thought I was doing something when I would have the 45-pound Olympic bar and like a 10-pound bell on each side. Mm-hmm. Or plate, I'm sorry. And this dude does it with 4 45-pound plates. I can't even bench that. Wayne, tell us about yourself, brother. Welcome to the Clay Edwards Show. Thank you for getting up and driving out here to our freedom of speech outpost.
Well, it's good to be here, guys. I appreciate the opportunity. Yeah, I'm from small town Mississippi, a little place called Laurel Hill. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it's in between Carthage and Philadelphia. We had one country store when I was growing up. One time the economy got to booming so hard we got 2 country stores, but it didn't last very long. Real small community, guys. Growing up, it was just, I'm my only child. My mom and dad decided after me, my mom got sick, so they decided not to try to have any more kids, but she always said I was like 4 and 1, so I was a big child growing up as well.
You came out swinging?
Yeah. But my dad, he owned his own logging operation, him and his brother, and I remember, as far back as I can remember, we had a little trailer house, and Dad had a little shed out back where he had a little cracker box welder, and work on his log trailers and trucks and stuff like that. And just like I don't know how you say, like a storybook hero, my dad was. He hear stories about him going to that little country store on the weekends where he shot pool and he'd arm wrestle. And a lot of the guys couldn't beat my dad with both hands. Just a short logger, put wood hauler, mechanic, diesel mechanic, just all around, I'd say like a man's man, and I really looked up to that. And when I was about 13, me and my mom, we'd rent the VHS tapes on the weekends because that's all you had to do, and we'd get like 7 or 8 at the time, because there's nothing else going on. And when I was maybe about 11 or 12 years old, I remember one day my dad walked in the room with the movie Over the Top. He said, I think you'd like this. And it was about, featuring Sylvester Stallone, where he goes to Vegas and wins everything in the world arm wrestling competition against all these big, huge guys that look real powerful. And I was like, man, this is awesome. And
one of the greatest 80s movies of all time.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's just all around best movie. I mean, I love it, and wanted to be like that. And I didn't realize later on in life I'd meet a lot of the guys from the movie. And I didn't realize at the time that it was an actual real tournament that went on in Vegas. And it wasn't just actors, it was real arm wrestlers, Stallone and a couple more was the only actors in the movie. There was a lot of real arm wrestlers. They briefly showed the guy that won the whole tournament, the truck and the $250,000. He was a smaller guy, and Hollywood didn't think that he would fit the role. It wouldn't be believable that a 200-pound guy could beat all these monsters in arm wrestling. So they used Bull Hurley for the role. But yeah, I didn't ever think that I would be in the spot like I say where I am today. But it wasn't always that easy though. I had a pay-per-view match in Arizona 2 weeks ago, me and about 10 other guys. One of them come as far as Europe, a 4-time world champion, and we was pay-per-view main event. But it didn't start out like that. It took a long time to get to where I am. A lot of people would have probably hung it up after a few years, but I didn't.
How did you do in the pay-per-view main event?
I took on a former world champion, Don Underwood. They call him Hollywood, and I beat him 3-0. So
wow.
Mm-hmm.
So have you won a world championship?
I have never been to the Worlds. I have beat multiple world champions. There's been some things along the way that's kept me from going. I started a new job with Hines Community College last year, and I was scheduled to go to the Worlds in Orlando, which was the first time the Worlds had been held in the U.S. in a long time, since the 80s. And just because I had started that job and I had a classroom full of students, it just worked out to where I couldn't get over there.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Life comes at you fast, doesn't it?
Oh, sure.
So it sounds to me like you're more like an arm wrestling prize fighter.
Sure, exactly. That's exactly right.
Versus maybe you're not out there doing the world championship stuff, but you're competing against the best of the best for money.
Yeah, I've beaten the best of the best. I have beaten multiple-time world champions. I've beaten national champions. Like I say, I went to the nationals just out of the blue last year. My buddies asked me, "Do I want to ride up there?" And I went with them, and I beat a 9-time world champion 3 times that day to win the nationals. And like I say, that's the only national title I have. I have about 50 state titles from around the United States.
Man, that's phenomenal. So when we were talking on the internet as we were getting ready to line this up, you had mentioned that I was like, "Oh, is the league you compete in the same one that I saw on YouTube down there at Brewski's and all that?" And you're like, "No, I don't compete in those because I like to give these guys a chance to go do their thing." And you wouldn't say it arrogantly or nothing like that,
sure.
But it was just what you do is the next level or the top of the top. It's not this bar level stuff.
Sure, yeah. Those guys that's going to these tournaments and these local tournaments, there's a lot of new guys going, and I'm really happy for that. I go to the practices sometimes just to support them, but it means a lot more for those guys to win a trophy or a medal than it does somebody like me that's already got a room full of medals in my trophy room, And like I say, not taking none of that for granted. It took a long time, a lot of hard work to get those trophies I got. But like I say, now, yeah, I would just rather see some. If I do go to the tournament, I like to just more so talk and hang out with the guys and let them pull, unless it's a national event.
It seems like that would, the knowledge that it took you some time to do that and knowing what those medals meant as you came up. Is that kind of part of the decision not to compete against them just because you remember being where they are? Oh,
exactly. Yeah. I remember going to tournaments, driving 6, 7, sometimes 8 hours and, just Joe Blow back of the woods arm wrestling tournament just so I could get the chance to compete. And out of nowhere, a world champion shows up. And I'm like, what are you doing here? It's kind of like me going to elementary school and saying, I'll arm wrestle you for your lunch money. I'm not going to show up to nothing like that.
Right.
Well, we used to do, when I was in the nightclub business back in the 2000s, we had a place out in Byram called Crazy 8, and we would set a ring up in there and do tough guy competitions. Mm-hmm. And it was wild, but it was kind of the same thing as that grassroots fighting and grassroots arm wrestling. And those were some of the funnest nights. The most vivid memories I have of being in the bar business was doing those kind of events. And I always wanted to do the arm wrestling stuff, but I could. This was pre-social media, so it wasn't like I could just throw a post on there and be like, "Hey, anybody know some arm wrestlers?" But they got a table, and and all that stuff that can come put this on. And could never pull it together to happen. So it's cool. So are there a lot of tournaments here locally or in central Mississippi or Mississippi at all?
Sure. We have about 4 major tournaments a year. We have one in Tupelo that Rance Clayton does. He's the second oldest arm wrestler in Mississippi behind me. And Sean Hancock and Brad Mann down south in Hattiesburg, they'll do the state championship. So
I have heard about that one.
Yeah, they'll do they done the Southeast Regionals this weekend, and they done a memorial tournament for my buddy B.J. Fakakis. His dad's memorial, he's ranked number 2 behind me in Mississippi, so he's a really good super. He used to travel with me around the country, and he can sign up to just about any state tournament in any part of the United States and be favored to win. He's really good,
And you're ranked number 1?
Ranked number 1 in Mississippi, yes, sir.
So the champ is here.
Yeah. I'm ranked number 1 in Mississippi, and I'm ranked number 1 in the Southeast. So SEC, if you like to watch college football, all the southern states, I'm ranked number 1. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
So let me ask this. How does one – I mean, it's one thing just to be able to lift heavy weight and be a big swole-up dude. But where does the technique – how does one train to be a great arm wrestler? I mean, because that's a technique. Because you see what we call cock-strong guys, just they may not be the biggest dudes in the world, but they know how to throw their weight.
Yeah.
Right. It's a lot to do with where the power is at. Like, say, for me, and you probably wouldn't believe this, but my max bench press is probably around 250 pounds. But I can curl more weight than that with my wrist. In arm wrestling, we don't push. Bench pressing is pushing. In arm wrestling, we pull. So everything I do in the gym is back pressure. And I usually put 6 plates or however many plates of 45s I can get and do sets of 10 for back pressure. Wrist curls, really strong hand and wrist. Whoever's got the strongest hand and wrist that's who's driving the car. That's who's going to win the match 99 times out of 100, I'm sorry. But, yeah, that's how it started for me. Years ago, just pulling against my dad, and by the time I was 15 or 16 years old, I could beat him or any other grown man in the county. And like I say, my dad was the local town strong guy. So pulling against him at a young age after I watched Over the Top, and, in 3 or 4 years of doing that and, toting chainsaws in the woods, because I started homeschooling at 14, and I went to work full-time with my dad in the woods. So running them chainsaws, holding it with my wrist, running old cable skidders from back in the day and stuff like that, I got really strong, and I thought I was really strong. Couldn't find nobody to arm wrestle after about 18. If somebody was in town wanting to arm wrestle, I was the guy, But when I was about 28, the logging industry just bellied up. We couldn't sell timber anywhere, and I called my friend in Karters who owned a gas station. I said, "Hey, look, can I pump some gas and change some oil?" He's like, "Man, yeah, come on," and I must have felt like a foot tall having to park my trucking business, get out of the logging and go over and pump gas. But
everybody has the moments of being humbled, man.
Absolutely, yeah.
But if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you guys right now, because I had been doing it for about 3 weeks and been working there. And he called me one day. He said, "You need to come by the gym today and pick your chick up." He was also a gym owner, and he was also famous for being the strongest guy in town. He had broke every record you could break in weightlifting. Bench press, squats, everything, big, strong guy. So I go by the gym to pick up the chick, and there's a flyer at the corner of my eye that they're going to do an arm wrestling competition. I never forget it. It said, "If you think you're tough, come prove it. We're going to have a big arm wrestling competition." So I was like, man, yeah, I was always good at that, and I kind of gotten away from it. And I counted the days. We had about 3 weeks, and I went and I blew all these guys away. I won easy. And I said, well, if they're doing this here, they got to be doing it in other places, right? So that's when I got on the internet. And back then, it was just a Northeast message board for arm wrestling. And I seen that every state except Mississippi put on arm wrestling tournaments, at least 2 a year. They would usually do some kind of regional and some kind of state tournament. And I seen Arkansas was doing a nationals. I didn't even know what a nationals was, but it was only like 6 hours away. So we made the trip. Went down to Arkansas, and I walked in. They was doing the kids tournament that first night, and I seen that these guys were not your average guys. I mean, they wasn't big, muscled-up guys. It was just kind of like if you see somebody in the special forces, there's something a little different about this person.
They were there. They were there for work.
Oh, yeah.
You knew the difference.
Oh, yeah. And, the next morning around the breakfast table in the hotel, you're seeing all of them. That's all they're talking about. They're talking about techniques, and that's all that's on their brain. I said, this old country boy's done got in a little bit over his head. I don't think this is going to turn out too good. And there was a 23-year-old young man in there using a gripper, walking around, a hand gripper. And I watched him get his arm broken. They took him out on a stretcher.
Ooh.
And I said, uh-oh. I walked over to the guy that was my first match. He was a Nevada state champ. And he said, don't worry. He said, I'm not going to hurt you, son. I wouldn't hurt you to win a match, because I done literally got scared by that point, And got beat really bad that day. And they said, maybe you should go to a state tournament. Maybe that's, more your level. You don't start out at the national level. So I had plenty of air miles, through my logging business. So New Mexico States was coming up, and I had met a guy there from Team New Mexico, and he offered me to stay at his house, and went down there, and I won the amateurs, and I got beat in the pros. You could sign up for amateurs or pros at these tournaments. You still can. You're only allowed to win like 3 amateur tournaments before you have to go to the pro class. And I won like the next amateur tournament I went to was in Alabama. I met Glenn Brooks, 2-time world champion from Italy. Well, he won 2 world championships in Italy. He's from Alabama. I was about to
say, a name like Glenn Brooks don't sound like a Italian name.
Right.
Went on over to Georgia and met Ron Baff, who's a 9-time world champion, and I was just so nervous I couldn't. Oh, Mr. Baff, it's just an honor, sir. I was shaking his hand, getting my autograph, and won the amateurs that day, and decided, it's time to go pro, and didn't win another match for 5 years. Got beat everywhere. Now, this is also, you got to remember, this is the kid that was 15 years old beating every grown man in the county. And I can't win.
I tell you what, Wayne, hold that thought. Let's take a break. And when we get back, let's pick up there at losing not winning a tournament for 5 years. So hold that thought. You're listening to the Clay Edwards Show. We'll be right back with arm wrestling champ Wayne Withers and THERESE Apel for DarkHorsePressNow.com. You're listening live to the Clay Edwards Show on 103.9 WYAB. All right, welcome back into the Clay Edwards Show. This segment is going to be brought to you by Complete Exteriors, Roofing and Gutters. Complete Exteriors, Roofing and Gutters in Pearl wants to help you determine who to use when you are seeking roof repair or work on your gutters.
Those guys are some good guys over there.
They are, man. We had Joe on the show.
Yeah.
A couple Fridays ago. And, you never know how something's going to go going into it and stuff, especially, stuff like that with sponsors and this, that, and the other. And I was blown away at the knowledge that he brought to the table, and he made roofing very interesting.
Yeah.
And the work with the insurance companies, and they got some new solar
roofing
coming, and he sent me some videos on it. I'm going to try to watch them today, but I'm very, very interested in it because it's not your typical flat solar panels.
Right.
They're shingles.
Right.
And he was going to bring some in and bring a hammer and show how durable they are. So I'm really looking forward to getting Joe back in here to discuss those. And they're one of your sponsors too, right?
Yeah, and what I love about them is what you said. They are so knowledgeable. It's like in a lot of cases, and I'm not just going to pick on roofing businesses, but you can walk into a business and you can ask them about what they're doing. They can give you a basic overview. Like the first time we talked to these guys, they were like, oh, look, and this is how this works. And they explained to us how they can see hail damage, that the guy that comes around a day or two after the hail, he'll say, oh, it looks fine. But they
Meanwhile,
can find
the car's beat to hell.
Right, the car's
literally
beat to hell, and so you look at this roof and you think, oh, just a couple of shingles came off. But when they send them out there, they can actually go up there with a marker and show you where the damage is, and then bring in one case, a lady that I talked to, they brought the insurance guy back and showed him, like, this is where the damage is. You missed this on your first appraisal, or is that the right word? Yeah. And so they looked at it and they did a whole entire new appraisal on it because they had missed all that. And that's what I love about Complete Exteriors. If I ever have to have a roof, which I rent, so right now I don't, but
touche.
Yeah, I mean, it was just knowing that they are able to do those things and are not afraid to, and they do it at prices that are affordable.
Yeah, look, and one of the things I love about them is they have a roofs for troops, and if you're active, retired, anything to do with the military, you get a $250 rebate.
Yep.
And that may not sound like a lot of money, but as high as gas is right now, I will take $250 any day of the week.
Absolutely.
Give me a good half tank of gas.
I mean, heck, it's as expensive as groceries are too.
Oh yeah, anything. So look, check out Complete Exteriors, Roofing and Gutters right there in Pearl. Their website is CompleteExteriorsMS.com. Deliveries.com. They got a 4.9 Google rating. And, brother, that don't happen on accident.
No,
I'm just going to tell you, that don't happen. Even happy customers don't give 5-star reviews.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
So to have a 4.9, that's as close to perfect as it gets. I guess some jerk probably gave him a 4 instead of a 5-star.
Right.
You know, like, what do we have to do to get the 5? When I was in the car business, I had a customer tell us one time, I just don't get, no matter how great it is, I just don't give 5-star reviews. Then what do you mean you don't give 5-star reviews? Then why are you reviewing stuff if in your mind you've decided that no matter how great it is, it ain't good enough?
Right.
Yeah, I hate people.
I don't get those people either.
I hate people. I don't hate this guy. I don't hate you.
I would be scared to hate this guy.
Yeah, look. So if you're just tuning in, we're joined in studio by arm wrestling champ, ranked number 1 in not just the state of Mississippi, but in the entire Southeast. I mean, real life American bad AWS. And
not only that, he has beaten multiple world champions, multiple times each.
Yeah.
So
he was, if you're just tuning in, he was picking up, he had gone through a stretch where he had not won a tournament, and you said 5 years?
Yes, sir.
5 years. All right, so let's pick up there.
Not won a match, actually.
No, I'm sorry, not won a match.
I had won my 3 amateur tournaments. Like I say, after that, you was supposed to go to pro only. And like I say, you didn't really have to back then. It wasn't as popular as it is now, and people didn't know you as good. So, you know, you might go to one in Louisiana, and they might not even know who you are, so you can sign up for your 4th or 5th one. But can't remember if I cheated or not. It's been a long time. But 5 years into it, at the time, Alabama State was the Super Bowl arm wrestling. And I remember thinking I had trained for 6 months and thought I had trained in the right ways. All I had was a book on how to be an arm wrestler. You know, that's all I had. And they really preached on finger strength, and I really took that to heart. And I honestly believe right now, if you cut off my fingers at the knuckle, I would still be just as good as I am, because I just don't use them in a match. You know, it's just whatever was working for these guys definitely don't work for me. But 5 years into it, I go to Alabama State, and I'm going to enter the amateur. You know, I'm going to be a bad boy. I'm going to enter the amateur, and I'm going to win amateurs, and I'm going to come top 3 in the pro class. You know, I'm confident about it. So sign up for the amateurs, and I'll never forget I took 2nd place in the amateurs that day. And it kind of felt like you went to college to get your master's degree, and the guy walks up to you and he's passing out diplomas and said, well, you know, we're sorry, you know better today than you was 5 years ago. And that's what I was no better 5 years into it than the day I started. So I'm gathering up my things to go to the house, and I'm done, you know, and I'm walking out the door, and there's this referee there that had refereed the amateurs.
When you say you're done, you're done with arm wrestling? Were you going to tap out at that point?
I was done. I just didn't seem like that it was something that was going to work for me, you know.
Gotcha.
And I was walking out the door, and there was an older referee there that had refereed the amateurs, but he was going to compete in the super heavies in the open. And I didn't know it. I didn't know who he was, but he just stopped me out of the blue. So, where you headed to, son? And I told him my story, you know, sad story, not no good, you know. He said, let me tell you a story. He said, in 4 years, I went to 36 tournaments and never won a single amateur match. I said, an amateur tournament? He said, no, son, I never won an amateur match. He said, my dad said, you know, I love you, but you might want to consider a different sport. He said, now I've been 2nd in the world 3 times. Don't never give up.
Wow. Well,
I didn't know this guy from Adam's Cat, so I decided to hang around and watch him compete. He destroyed everybody. Never seen him in a tournament before that, never seen him after, don't even know his name. Don't know who he was. But he destroyed everybody in there, and he done it with such a confidence that when he would grab their hand on the table, he would just look at them and just bellow out and smash the hand on the table. Like you don't think you got a chance. He was just that confident, you know. So I was like, wow, you know, if he can do it, I can do it, because I had only lost a handful of amateur matches at that time.
So it was confidence the missing key?
Sure.
Or was it a technique?
It was a little mixture of probably strength, speed, confidence, all that. It really changed things. Not long after that, I read on a Facebook post that there was these local guys in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, that was, you know, doing arm wrestling tournaments. One of them was building arm wrestling tables, and they had a little shed where they was practicing. So they was doing a tournament in Tuscaloosa, and I rode out there, and of course they all destroyed me. And these guys had been arm wrestling less time than I had. I'd been arm wrestling 5 years, you know, a few tournaments a year, and these guys was just getting started, and they was just wiping the floor with me. And I said, man. But, you know, they invited me to a practice that day, and I'd never been to arm wrestling practice. So
So all you were doing was just weightlifting and going to tournaments.
Correct.
So you never actually got a chance to practice the technique.
Exactly. And I went out to Tuscaloosa to this guy's house, and they're beating me, and this goes on for a couple of hours, and there's a 55 or 60-year-old national champion in the corner drinking coffee out there watching me arm wrestle. And he walks over there to me, and he says, "Son, you don't have a clue what you're doing, do you?" I said, "No, sir." He said, "Well, you want me to teach you how to arm wrestle?" I said, "Please." I said, none of these big guys are working with me at all at these tournaments. He said, "Well, I'm not in your weight class. I don't mind showing you what to do." He was in the light heavyweight class. So he worked with me about 3 hours and showed me a different technique that how these pros was using my long arm against me. They knew how to use it against me where the average guy around the house didn't. And I started winning tournaments everywhere I went, entering the pro class. I won state titles in a few different places, and then I put on the first ever tournament that I know of in the state of Mississippi at the Dancing Rabbit next to the Silver Star Casino. And some guys come from up north. A guy contacted me from down around Jackson that he's the supervisor over all the Walmart pharmacies. So he's real good at organizing things. So he wanted to put on some tournaments, not really compete. He just wanted to do some, so I just kind of turned that part of it over to them.
Yeah.
And then the guys from down around Hattiesburg kind of took it from there because he got ready to get out. But now we're really big. We're probably one of the best tournaments you can go to in the whole country.
Isn't it amazing
That's
how
awesome.
all it takes is one person to take you under their wing a little bit and kind of show you? And those are the people you'll never forget. It doesn't matter what walk of life, what career, any of that. And when I was in the car business, there was a salesman, Bill Johnson Jr. I was just wallering out there. Didn't know what I was doing, lost, angry, wanted to quit. And this guy took me under his wing and showed me how to close customers and how to talk to people properly, and this, that, and the other. And still to this day, I'll be forever grateful. It's the same thing with this.
Yeah, what's his name? Is he still around?
Yeah, Tim Davison, he's from Tuscaloosa, and I've went so far in the sport that every time I see him now, he wants his picture taken with me. He wants to shake my hand.
Oh, man. I think that made me want to cry.
That's awesome. Well, Therese, I saw over the weekend you got to meet one of your idols and get a picture.
Back in the day.
Oh, was that an older picture?
That was an older picture of me and Ashley Banfield.
Okay.
And, I got to be on a panel at CrimeCon several years ago for a major case that I was covering at the time. And I had been on Ashley Banfield's show, covering local crime on occasion when we had a big case. And I walked up to get her autograph, and I said, "My name's Therese. I've been on your show a couple times." She looked at me and she said, "I know exactly who you are." I was like, "Oh my gosh!" It's like I broke down right there and got a picture taken and all that kind of stuff. And it's funny how that happens, but it's a whole different thing. Like for me, just her acknowledging that she knew which one I was a big deal. Like for you, the guy that gave you the secret now is asking for selfies with you.
And advice. I've changed up some things over the years. I do a few different techniques, some that I've learned on my own. And a lot of times if he's got a match, he still competes. He'll say, "What should I do in this situation or that situation?" So
when the teacher becomes the pupil.
Absolutely.
Let's take a break real quick. We're going to come back. We're going to land the plane for the hour and get ready for hour number 2. You listen to the Clay Edwards Show. We'll be right back on 103.9 WYAB. All right, welcome back into the Clay Edwards Show. We got about 3 minutes here till we end the top of the hour, or we get to the top of the hour. So, Wayne, I'm going to get you to pick your story back up after the top of the hour news break. But I know we were talking during the break about being a big guy like yourself and going in bars. And Therese had a question.
Yeah, so a lot of people that listen will remember Todd Wade. He played football at Jackson Prep and then played at Ole Miss and went on to have a pro career as well. Biggest dude at Ole Miss when I was there, just huge. And he would go into bars and all these skinny little frat guys would talk about wanting to kick his butt. And like, I want a shot at that guy. Do you go through that?
Oh, yeah. I can't go to a bar. There's going to be trouble before the night's out. If I go to a bar, somebody's going to try something. I don't know if that's maybe it looks like a prize to them or something to take me out. I don't know what it is, but, it don't never really get physical. They usually change their mind when I start changing my looks towards them, but they'll definitely say some words to me, you know.
Well, you know, I guess maybe I was always just big enough that I never looked at the big guy and think I want a shot at the title. Those thoughts never crossed my mind when I go into a bar. I think anybody that's smart may want to go for the smaller guy if you just are insistent on starting a fight. And that's never that sure isn't a surefire win either. There's a lot of small guys that'll whoop your butt. You know, I mean, look, I've got some friends that are skinny as a rail, but they got those razor blade knuckles.
Yeah.
And when they hit, it's just stone hands. I mean, just knock you out, man. But you were talking about we all have our Walmart nightmares. I was one of the few people that actually didn't mind wearing a mask in Walmart because you didn't have to stop and talk to everybody you went to high school with. And, of course, apparently the beard and the tattoos still give me away, face mask or not.
Yeah.
So much for that idea. But you were talking about you just moved to the area, right?
Yeah, I just moved to Brandon about a year ago.
And so you're out at the Walmart, and people are recognizing you from YouTube.
Sure. The last 2 times I went, I had guys walk up to me, and both of those guys that started coming to some practices we're doing in Madison for some new guys. But yeah, it's nothing uncommon. I remember when the pandemic hit, I couldn't go to the gym, and I bought me a new storage shed and went to Sports Academy in Starkville.
Wayne, hold that thought, brother. We're going to the hard break here in about 10 seconds. Sure. You're listening to the Clay Edwards Show, joined by arm wrestling champ Wayne Withers and THERESE Apel, and we'll be right back after this break on 103.9 WYAB. All right, welcome back into the Clay Edwards Show. We are live here in the 103.9 WYAB studios. We're streaming worldwide at WYAB.com and on the TuneIn app. And if you missed any of today's show, be sure to go to ClayEdwardsShow.com or your favorite podcasting or music streaming service. The podcast will be available on all of those platforms, as well as today's the 260th episode. So
wow.
There's 259 of them available for your listening pleasure.
That's a lot of binging.
That is. And some of them are 2 hours, some of them are 1. There's some one-off. There's actually over 300 of them there because some of them are episodes that didn't air on the radio, interviews, stuff of that nature for just the podcast only that I should get back to doing when I find some time. But right. neither here nor there. But so plenty of stuff available. And real quick, before we get into our ad read here, big man, tell people how to find you online.
You can find me on Instagram at Armbender601, or you can go to Wayne Withers Arm Wrestling on YouTube, like and subscribe. Run into it a little bit with, I think, people going to other channels, watching my matches and subscribing to their channels, but I think if you stroll down far enough, you can find my channel.
So let's do that, guys. Pull up your YouTube, go to Wayne Withers Arm Wrestling, hit subscribe, go pick a video, hit like, and I will share his YouTube channel to one of my pages at some point in time today, my personal page or the Save Jackson page or something like that. Let's help get he's got about 700 subscribers. Let's help get him over 1,000 so he can get that thing monetized and become a YouTube partner. And then they'll start suggesting his videos and other feeds. Let's help support local content creators.
Absolutely.
And go that route. Well, THERESE.
Yes.
Real quick. Are you getting take a break deliveries delivered for lunch today?
I have not ordered lunch yet, but I'm sure that when I do, it'll be from Take a Break.
So something really cool. They have expanded into pretty much all of central Mississippi at this point.
Right.
Or at least Byram, Florence, and Clinton on top of certain areas in Jackson, Rankin County, Madison County.
Right.
So on and so forth. And if you live in one of the areas that has a liquor store, they are delivering liquor.
Oh, yeah.
And I guess they do beer, too. I mean, yeah, they can do beer.
Right.
They were already able to do that. So
if you're home and you think, what would make this meal perfect is a bottle of wine, you can now get somebody to deliver it. And you don't have to go out and get it yourself. Because we all know how annoying that is. Like, I really, really want, a margarita or something. But then I'd have to get up and I'd have to go do this. And I'd have to go to the liquor store and just hope it's not crowded. And for those of us that live in Brandon proper, well, I got to drive to wherever. And I guess you still would have to because they can't deliver in there, can they?
Well, they can't until the liquor store opens. Okay. But they did just pass approved liquor stores. So that's coming here in the next couple months.
Yep.
So you will be able to get liquor delivered in Brandon proper, not just the reservoir side. Mm-hmm. And so that'll be. Hey, I wish they had done all this when I was still drinking liquor.
That's what I was thinking. Back when I was a drinker and I drank enough to actually finish a whole bottle at any point. I have like 17 unfinished bottles of scotch and whiskey in my kitchen that just stay there.
Back when Sunday Fun Day was still a thing.
Right. Back when I still had friends to drink with.
No doubt. Well, look, whether it's lunch, dinner, or a drink, give takeabreakdeliveries.com a shout, and they will get you taken care of. Download the app from the App Store or the Google Play Store. Use if you're using it for the first time, use the code CLAY601 with a capital C or
Dark Horse,
and get you $4 off your delivery fee. And download the app, sign up for the notification because they send delivery discounts every day. Every day they send out a new one. They don't pull them back on busy days or anything like that. They always take care of their customers, and they wait on the food. The food does not wait on them.
Right. And big picture wise, what's important also to me, they're local, owned locally, owned by a veteran, the whole thing. So that's who you need to look at, because they are right here in our own town, right here in our own community, making money that goes back into the local economy.
Yeah, and not to make a whole segment about an advertiser here, but I think one of the really things that really made my ears perk up when Keith, the owner, was in the studio with us a few weeks ago, was that each driver is only allowed to deliver one order at a time. So they're not picking up 2 or 3 orders, and you may be the 3rd or 4th delivery. They're going back to the restaurant fresh every time to get your order.
Yep.
Take it, then they get another order. And that explains so much why they're always on time, and the food's always hot and fresh.
Yep.
And I mean, that I would be sitting here telling y'all about this if they weren't a sponsor of this show.
Yeah, me too.
Because I like good customer service. All right, so takeabreakdeliveries.com or download the app. Take a Break Deliveries from the App Store. We're joined in the studio by arm wrestling champ, ranked number 1 in the Southeast, Mr. Wayne Withers, Armbender601 on Instagram. And I have no doubt that he got that name the hard way.
Right.
So, Wayne, where we dropped off was the teacher become the pupil. But I want to circle back to one thing before we pick it back up on the story. You mentioned that your father was your hero, and he kind of laid the groundwork for you getting into this, showed you over the top. Your dad was your hero, and it goes back to how important, we talk about this all the time here, it is to have a good male role model and the father in the home, and because these kids are always watching. That really stuck with me. And you lost your father recently, about a year ago this week.
Yeah, about a year ago. I think May the 28th.
Yeah, and you were dealing with an injury, so maybe some nerve damage or something in your arm during that time. And because of it, you said it was 3 months or 5 months you were in the hospital with him.
It was 3 months. I was dealing with a lot of pain in my right arm, and I was still winning tournaments, but I was almost crying at the time it was over. It was so much pain, and I didn't really know what was going on. But my dad fell and broke his neck and got paralyzed from the neck down and was in UMC for about 3 months. And I was down there almost every day with him, and I just couldn't train. And whatever was going on with my arm, it healed up in those 3 months.
So how long before between your dad passing and your next tournament?
Oh, I can't really it would have probably been about maybe a month or 2. I stay pretty active. It couldn't have been longer than 2 months.
So I'm going to go out on a limb here and guess that first tournament back, you had some canned up frustration or just a little pent up energy.
Yeah, I was
bad day to be another guy's arm.
Yeah, exactly.
I was. As a matter of fact, I think it was maybe a Florida tournament or something, and I was just in shock and awe because I had pulled like 2 or 3 matches and I didn't even realize I had pulled. I said, what's going on? Usually I'm crying by now.
Yeah.
But I remember I went to a tournament before my dad passed in Texas, and the very first match, the guy was might as well say he was an amateur entering the pro class, and I put him down fast, but I felt everything just twist in my forearm. I said, this is going to be a bad day. There's no way I'm going to win. And I did. I won. But I was in pain. But it's been great the last year that I haven't hurt anything. Everything's just been clicking on all 8 cylinders,
Well, look, man, that's good to know. I wanted to mention that on air just because I wanted to bring up your father and kind of overcoming the adversity and getting back in and winning and just having that father, that role model to look up to, and a guy that saw something in you. Well, as your dad, of course, he's going to see stuff in you.
Yeah.
But to say, hey, man, big man here may like this, and you did. You watched Over the Top, and that led you down this road. That's
Sure.
wild.
I don't know if arm wrestling was something that I was really that interested in, or maybe it was just a way for me to try to connect with my dad because I knew he was into strength and stuff like that. But I'm definitely something that is definitely taken seriously now. But like I say, back as a young child, I can't even really remember what made me so crazy over the sport.
You know, it's interesting how that happens because when I was 15 years old, I didn't make cheerleader, and I had the best technical score, but I didn't get the popular vote by a long shot. So I took it real to heart, and I was getting all depressed about it. And my dad came in with a newspaper, and he set it on the table, and there was an ad that was calling for high school sports stringers, and he pointed to it and he said, "Go tell that man you can write." And I was like, "No, Daddy, blah, whatever. My life is over." I'm sure it was something along those lines. And he said, "No, go tell him you can write." And he just pushed that ad over towards me. And I said, "Well, I mean, I don't want to write about sports." And he said, "Well, it gets you on the sideline with the football players, doesn't it?" And I was like, "Ooh." And that's what kicked off my career as a journalist. So it's funny how dads can do that. They can hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, they can point you in the right direction. You
Right.
know?
My parents used to change my diaper on a pool table in a bar. So
There it is.
It was inevitable that I would one day end up in the bar business. All right, man. So picking up on your story, we dropped off at the teacher had become the pupil, the guy that showed you how to do it over in Tuscaloosa, and now he gets selfies with you, and you teach and you show him some technique. So
Sure. I went. Like I say, I was winning some state tournaments, but I still had a couple of things on my bucket list. I thought that was all I wanted to do. And like I say, originally I thought just a state champ would be enough, but anytime something happens, just makes me that much hungrier to keep on going up the mountain.
That's how goals work, right? You set a goal, and as you get closer to that goal, you've already started setting the next one. So hitting that goal is just a step along the way.
Yeah.
Sure. So Alabama State, of course, that was something that was on the bucket list, and Louisiana had these cool custom belts. They still do. For 31 years, they have been doing what they called the country band tournament down in Lake Charles, Louisiana. And these was like $1,000, $1,200 belts probably 31 years ago. You know, big WWE style belts with the carpet on the back. Just awesome, you know, thick gold belts.
Is that the one you got a picture with on your Facebook?
Sure, one of my old pictures.
Yeah.
I think that's on there, yeah. So that was something that I wanted, and you didn't get to keep the belt. Obviously, these are expensive belts, and they had them for each weight class. So you either had to defend the belt the next year, or you had to send it back in the mail. And what was cool about it is that they would put these stamps on the side with everybody's name that wins the belt every year.
Kind of like the Stanley Cup.
Yeah. So I went to Alabama and got beat, and I said, well, we'll do it maybe next year. I go down to Louisiana to this tournament, 6-hour drive. And Travis Bajent from West Virginia shows up out of the blue, multiple-time world champion. I'm like, oh, man, what's this guy doing here?
Dang it.
And I remember I took second place that day, and I hated it so bad, and I said, I'm coming back after this, and that's what I got to thinking when I got back home. I said, yeah, I can win the state tournament, but what if I drive 6 hours and this guy shows up, or if I go 4 or 5 hours to Alabama and this guy shows up, I'm going to get second, third place maybe. I said, what have I got to do to become that guy that when I walk in the room, everybody's afraid of me? And I remember I had always gone by the mentality that if you want to get good at arm wrestling, you arm wrestle. If you want to get good at pitching, you pitch, right? So one of the best arm wrestlers in the world, that was his mentality, just arm wrestle. Well, he was a world champion at 18 years old, and I don't have the luxury of having world champions at my house every weekend to train with. So when I would go to a practice, it was few and far between. It was 3 to 4 hour drive. I would do too much when I went, and I would hurt my arm, and I would leave in worse shape than I was when I got there. So I watched this video on this guy that's a 30-time national champion from Montana, and they asked me in the video, how often do you go to arm wrestling practice? He said, I've never been to arm wrestling practice in my life. He said, I just lift weights. And going back to the guy that hit me out in Alabama years prior, if he can do it, why can't I do it? So I started going to the gym, and I started creating ways and thinking about my match and what I'm doing and how I'm pulling, and I started doing these unique moves in the gym. And then I said, well, wait a minute. I'm not, they always preach to you do whatever you can do comfortably, a set of 10, right? But these guys I'm arm wrestling, we're not going back and forth 10 times at 50%. They're hitting me with everything they got wide open. So
max rep.
Right. So I started doing whatever I was doing for 10 reps. I started doing 2 reps with double the weight. And eventually, I'm talking about just in a real short amount of time, I had to go back to 10 reps because I could put everything I could find in the gym on far as weight, and I could do 10 reps. So my power went through the roof just in like 6 months' time. So going on down the road, the World Arm Wrestling League is coming alive. You know, they're doing these tournaments, and I qualified. I had to win a state tournament and go to Dallas and come in top 12 in the nation. I'm top 12 in the South. What they was calling the South was from California to West Virginia down, and they was taking the 12 from the upper part of the United States. And come in the top 12. I go to Vegas, and you know, we're on ESPN, and run into Travis again, this Travis Bajent guy. Can't seem to get away from this guy. He eliminates me from the tournament. I made it like a match away from the finals. And like I said, we're good friends now, but I mean, he ended up winning the whole thing. He won the 10,000 right hand, left hand, and come back home still on the drawing board, you know, and still getting stronger and stronger doing these heavy weight for low reps. And a few months go by, and Travis calls me in 2018. He said, "Hey, I'm coming down in your neck of the woods. I'm going to be in Louisiana. You know, Ryan Bowden from Australia, they're doing a pound-for-pound arm wrestling tournament." So I had just worked a 12-hour shift that Friday night, and I was home this Saturday morning like 9 o'clock going up my stairs to go to bed. And when he called me, I said, "Well, I can't come. I got to, you know, go into work again tonight." I was working 7 days in a row, and I called my buddy, and I said, "Hey, you want to get some overtime?" "Sure." So I made a 6-hour trip to Louisiana, and I get down there, and the Texas state champ is there. California state champion flew in, and these are some really, really good arm wrestlers. And I won the whole tournament that day, and it really it booted me up. You know, it said, you know, hey, if I really get in the gym and double my time, what can I do? So that's November of 18. February comes around, we got Alabama state championships again. And when I walk in, this isn't your ordinary state championship.
So you're in your late 30s at this point.
Yeah, I'm in my late 30s. That's when my power really started coming together. It took a good while. I'm a lot better arm wrestler at 41 now than I was at 31.
Isn't that funny? I love that.
So I go to Alabama, and like I say, this is more like a nationals. I mean, we got the guy from Georgia that's just won the nationals in both arms down in Florida. We got the guy, Kentucky national champion. There's a lot of national champions at this state tournament from all over the country. And some veterans walk up to me and they say, "Man, I don't know who's going to win your weight class because you have got the most talent I've ever seen."
So you're in super heavies? Super heavies.
And I'm the only one there without the national title. You know, I've got some state titles under my belt, but I'm going against at least 10 national champions.
Let me ask this: super heavies, that's the big dog. Is that the main event in all these tournaments, or is there another weight class that might be more popular, or is everybody there to see the super heavies?
I would say the super heavies. It's 243 and above.
Got it.
In your weight category. And like I say, there's probably 10 national champions in my weight class on this day in Alabama State. And I'm wondering, I knew I'm trained up, but what can I do? I didn't break a sweat. I won the whole tournament, won the overalls. And the overalls are hard for a super heavyweight to win because the super heavyweights are the last guys to compete. And then you never move away from the table. So once you win your finals match in the super heavies, here comes the 242-pound champ that's been resting for an hour.
So you do get to mix weight classes,
right? If you do what they call the king of the table for the overall title.
Got it.
So the 242-pound guy's been resting for an hour. The 220-pound champ that's been resting even longer than him's behind him. It's like a train of guys coming at you. So like I say, it's really designed for the super heavyweight guy to lose.
Yeah. All right, look, hold that thought. I want to tap back into that. We're going to take a break real quick. You're listening to the Clay Edwards Show, and joined by arm wrestling champ Wayne Withers and THERESE APEL with darkhorsepressnow.com. And we'll be right back on 103.9 WYAB. All right, welcome back into the Clay Edwards Show. We're live here on 103.9, streaming worldwide at WYAB.com and on the TuneIn app. This segment is going to be brought to you by Miss Kimberlee Haralson over at Next Home Realty. Look, if you're listing, selling, buying a home, it's easier than you may think. In fact, it's just a click away when you work with Kimberlee Haralson at Next Home Realty. If you're looking to make a move to or from the Jackson area, then Kimberlee Haralson is the agent that you'll want. She knows how to negotiate the best price, buying or selling. Kimberlee Haralson will help you make the right decision with your home. Check out Kimberlee's listings. They're online now at KimberleeSalesMS.com. Spell it with me. That's KIMBERLEE, salesms.com. All right, man, we are in studio with Miss Therese Apel with DarkHorsePressNow.com.
Hi, everybody.
Had to get that in. And
I was going to say we hadn't done that yet.
Had not done that yet. And arm wrestling champ and just cornbread-fed big country boy, Mr. Wayne Withers here. I mean, this dude, if you looked up cornbread-fed country boy in the dictionary, if there's not a picture of Wayne,
I mean, really,
it's got to be his father.
Right.
Because this dude even teaches logging at Hines.
Right.
On top of being an arm wrestling champ. I mean, he checks off all the boxes of a guy you don't want to get drunk and mess with.
Yeah, and if you're on your draft horse and it decides that it doesn't want to cross the river, call Wayne and he'll carry it across the river for you because that's how strong this guy is.
I mean, I believe Chuck Norris probably wears Wayne Withers pajamas.
I think he does, yeah.
Hi, Wayne. So you're telling us a story. I'm going to let you kind of pick up where you left off there about the last tournament you won, or not the last one, but just where you were at in your story.
Yeah, so I had, like I say, there was a lot of good pullers at Alabama State, and I won the overalls that day, the whole tournament. And as of to date, I'm the 4-time overall Alabama State champ. But right after I won that first one, and I had won that, I had lost that country band belt, I'm sorry, but I won that first Alabama State title. Not long after that, I did go down to Louisiana, and I won that country band belt and brought it home. And right after that, the World Arm Wrestling League had turned into like UFC style, where it was pay-per-view, not necessarily pay-per-view, but Fox Sports 1, and it was the best 2 out of 3 super match format instead of open tournament format. And it was the hottest thing smoking in arm wrestling. But like I say, you had to be drafted. So I heard that they was doing 4 tournaments around the United States in 4 different areas. There was free tournaments, and the winner, the king of the table, which meant you beat everybody in the house, every weight class, would get a spot on the show. And that really caught my attention. So out of one of the locations was Pennsylvania. So I flew to Pennsylvania, and out of 235 competitors, I won the whole tournament. I won king of the table. Come back home, and we found out in a few weeks, you're going to get a spot on the show, but it's going to be more like an undercard, like before the main event style for like little money, like $200. And, everybody else pretty much just told them that won around the United States, hey, you can just keep your match, that's wasted our time. But the way I looked at it was, hey, I got to do something to show these guys that I'm a lot better than what they think. So I contacted my promoter, and we toyed with the idea of who to get from the show down to arm wrestle me in Mississippi. And he said, what about Matt Mass? Well, that's Devin Lorette's buddy, and he's all-around decorated world champion, really explosive on the table, one of their top stars. And we asked him, he said, sure, I'll fly to Mississippi. And we set the date for 2 months for September 19. So for 2 months, I pretty much moved in the gym, took my suitcase, changed my diet, changed everything around. I was training 6 to 8 hours a day a lot of days, And about a month before our match, the World Arm Wrestling League flew in the Italian world champion, who had, like I say, had hardly ever lost any matches, and Matt Mass just destroyed him, sent him back to Italy with one of his first ever losses, beat him 3-0. And so what's going to happen when he comes pulls an old country boy from Mississippi, right? He's gonna take the day. So I get there, and they got his posters up on the wall. He's signing autographs, signing T-shirts and stuff, and yeah, beat him 3-0.
Where did y'all do it at?
Hattiesburg, Mississippi at Brewski's. I believe it was the state championships that year. So it was a super match between me and him, and we had some other super matches on the card, but he was heavily favored to win the match.
That's just that. So if you do a super match at a tournament, that's just in addition to the tournament.
Correct. Well, it was kind of like the main event per se before the tournament. We had all these super matches first, and then we done the state tournament.
Did you enter the state tournament also?
No, I don't believe I did. I think I was just in the super match that day.
After beating the world champ, what's the state tournament at that point? Not to discount the state tournament, but it's kind of hard to come down from that.
Right. Well, and when you have a situation like that where you're beating somebody that is heavily favored over you, And you think about everything you've done to get there, and then it actually happens. What is that like?
Oh, it wasn't a high in the world I could think of that would match that. I mean, it was just an amazing feeling, like all my hard work paid off. Everybody was congratulating me and everything. And I remember walking outside, and he was just shaking his hand. He's like, I don't know how you took my hand like that. And I said, well, when we shook hands last night at the restaurant, I was kind of intimidated because each one of your fingers felt like a pair of pliers going around my hand. And he said, I was thinking the same thing about you.
I imagine being a arm wrestler like that and doing this. I mean, it's man against man.
Yeah.
And I bet every handshake is a duel.
Yeah. Well, and while you were in the bathroom, I was talking about when I was in martial arts and I was doing tournaments and how it really is like that. Like these people kind of in some ways become your family. And in sometimes there are going to be, like, if you want to call it a family, sibling rivalries that can be a little contentious.
Frenemies.
But in the end, it's a constant, like, learning each other, sizing each other up, all that kind of thing as you go along. And getting to know each other as people is like the icing on the cake.
Sure. Well, the World Arm Wrestling League, they didn't call me after that. They called all the other competitors and said, don't you ever do that again, because we had made them look bad.
I bet.
These top guys, these TV star arm wrestlers are not supposed to lose matches like that. And he come to Mississippi, and from what I'm told, every athlete was called by the World Arm Wrestling League and said, do not ever do that again. And 6 months later, a guy from Montana sees how popular I'm getting online and wants to come out of retirement, says his wrist hasn't been broken back in 12 years. So he starts talking a lot of stuff online, wants to meet at Alabama State Championship. So I agree to a match, and he starts talking me down, saying that I'm not as good as everybody's saying. So I put as much time into him as I did everybody else. And when we got to Alabama State, I done him the same way I done Matt Mass.
Good.
But on the way down there, he knew people with the World Arm Wrestling League, and he said, hey, you guys need to watch this. The winner of this match should be the one that's on the show. Luckily for me, they listened to him. They was watching that day. And 2 weeks later, they called and gave me a 2-year contract worth about $5,000 a match.
Oh, wow.
So, boom, things go on. They call me and they say, you'll be in Chicago Monday, August the 10th for the photo shoot. Tuesday night, you'll be on TV and, you'll be arm wrestling. I was like, great, man, can't wait. About 2 weeks later, 2 weeks before the tournament, the whole season gets canceled because of coronavirus. And I was like,
man.
This is my time, because so far they had done like Series 400, Series 500, and I was going to be at the very first new series, which was nothing else than World Arm Wrestling League 601. Where are we at, guys?
Yep.
Mississippi
601. I love it.
It was going to be in Chicago, 601. And like I say, I felt like the guy that had been singing in Nashville on the street corner for pennies, and he gets his record contract and it goes, the label goes broke or something. But
So did the World Arm Wrestling League fold through Corona? Is it still in existence?
They're still waiting in the background. It's kind of like they tell me, Joe Bob or whoever these other guys can put on a arm wrestling tournament. And you can sue them till you're blue in the face, if you get COVID. You can't get no money out of it. But we're afraid because, the World Arm Wrestling League has a big audience that watches. It's part of the show. You need the audience for the show. Mm-hmm. And I know everything's died down, but they still haven't picked it right back up yet. But I'm sure they will in the future. So right now, I'm just going to tournaments wherever they're doing a match. If they want to have me on the card on a pay-per-view or something, I'm going and pulling in these tournaments. It's not paying near as good as the World Arm Wrestling League, but, I'm wanting to get out to some events like some world championships and stuff. The WAF, the WAF, World Arm Wrestling Federation, did a qualifier nationals in Kansas City last weekend, and the winners will go to Turkey to the Worlds around December. And I would have loved to have been a part of it, but I didn't know about it till like a week or two out. Well, by then, the plane tickets double,
Yeah.
So you mentioned the people that want to get into it, and they want to go look at the top 10 and call somebody out. If somebody wants to call you out, and what kind of money they got to come with to get you to come and pull?
I feel like I'm real reasonable on price. So there's a guy from Florida right now that's really trying to make a name for himself, and they contacted me a couple of weeks ago, and it was kind of inconvenient because I got a cabin in Louisville that weekend. That Sunday it's 4th of July weekend. So I said, yeah, you get me an early flight out Sunday morning, I can do this. But I told him, a plane ticket, a hotel, and $400. Yeah. And the way I look at it, that's not, I'm going out of my way to come pull you. I'm not asking to pull you, you're asking to pull me. So, it's not a whole lot of money in what I'm doing right now.
pay all my expenses and $400 and
Sure.
and I'm sure, not that anybody can admit this, and but theoretically, I'm sure there are some people in the audience with some side bets going on. I'm sure that there's some side action at these things, like at pool tournaments and stuff of that
Sure.
nature.
Oh yeah, sure. Like I was saying earlier, during break, sometimes just random people that don't arm wrestle gets brave enough to call me out, but they never, go through with it. I was telling that guy that called me a couple months ago that said that he could beat me. I was like, sure, $1,000, and they brought it up. They brought up the price. I said, yeah, I said, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you. If you're brave enough to bet $1,000 against me on an arm wrestle table, I said you were doing some serious gambling. I said you just went from the slot machines to casino to the private poker room. You're doing some gambling.
All right,
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, look, we're going to take a break real quick. You're listening to the Clay Edwards Show. I'm joined by arm wrestling champ Wayne Withers and Therese Apel with DarkHorsePressNow.com. We'll be right back on 103.9 WYAB.
Together,
All right, welcome back into the Clay Edwards Show. And look, the conversation don't stop just because we're off there, man.
I was asking important questions during the break.
Like, did the people that wear the glitter, are they flashy?
That was different. That was not what I asked.
I was freehanding there.
Yeah.
Well,
Your story's better than mine anyway.
Oh no. Look, y'all, I'm just entranced over there. I think this has been a great story of overcoming adversity and being very close to thinking you're not good enough and giving up, to literally packing your bag, walking out the gym, and a guy catches you and says, hey, let me take you under my wing. Let me show you a little bit. And then you had the opportunity to go practice. And I didn't even think about, with a sport like this, it's not like, training at a great jiu-jitsu gym here where you get to train against the best every day. With arm wrestling, I can't talk today. With arm wrestling, you don't exactly have somebody that you're equal to train against.
Well, and you don't think about it. I know that in the times that I've done sports, whether it was martial arts or tennis or whatever, I practiced with men because I knew that men were going to be stronger and they were going to be able to, usually bigger, taller, that kind of thing, so I could build up to that game. But when you're the best, when you're already the best, how do you find competition to practice with that actually betters your game? When
you're the alpha male, it's hard to find other alpha males, or women or whatever to train against.
Yeah, I normally do. I do two-handed. The guys I go to practice with, they'll either use both hands or they'll put the big straps around their body. So when I'm pulling against their arm, I'm also pulling against that strap that's twisting their body around. So it makes them. They go from amateur to pro real quick with that strap.
Mm-hmm. That's right. So there is a strap. I remember seeing that. That was something I had not ever noticed before until I kind of dove into the videos.
Right. Oh, you're talking about the arm wrestling strap that comes on after you slip. What I'm talking about is like at practice, I'll put a strap around their body, and it comes back around, and when I pull, I'm pulling that strap and their arm at the same time. It's like a bungee cord strap, like they use at the gym to lift weights with.
So does it kind of add the weight of their body to what's going on too?
Right.
Okay.
The further you pull that, the harder you pull on that strap, the stronger, the harder it gets to pull. Mm-hmm. But yeah, strap arm wrestling is a big part of my game. Once you go to a match and the referee says ready to go, if you slip out, you're going what they call the strap, where they tie your hands together. That makes me a lot more dangerous arm wrestler. I usually look for a strap match because when you can't get away from my hand, it makes it that much harder to beat me. Now, if you're real technical and you can kind of get outside on my fingers, you have more of a fighting chance versus if you're tied to me and you can't go nowhere. So I win a lot of my matches that way.
All right, so again, everybody get out there, subscribe to my guy's YouTube channel. Just go to Wayne Withers Arm Wrestling on YouTube, subscribe, and hit the share button. It ain't going to kill you. Share that to your Twitter, to your Facebook, and watch it. Watch some of the videos. He's also on Instagram at ArmBender601, and I'm on there as Clay601. Therese, where are you on Instagram at?
On Instagram, it's going to be Dark Horse Press.
Dark Horse Press.
Yeah, and look for our logo.
Yep. So I'm always trying to get back into plugging the social media stuff around here. I tend to get away from it here and there, and this is how we promote what we do. So.
Right.
And like I say, if you type in my name on YouTube, the very first match that's probably going to show up is me versus Matt Mass. It'll say Wayne Withers versus Matt Mass, USA versus Canada. So a lot of people will see that and subscribe to that channel. But my channel is just more basic. If you stroll down, you'll see photo of me and it says Wayne Withers Arm Wrestling. So like I say, there's a lot of people that's got me on their YouTube channels that you might get confused by, but if you look hard enough, you'll find me on there.
I'm going to be I got a busy day today, but I'm going to sneak in some arm wrestling binge watching.
Yeah.
Now after hearing all these stories, I want to go watch it. It's like hearing about a good movie.
Right.
You want to go watch.
So. Right. Well, and the thing we were talking about during the break, about how people were saying that when you beat Matt Mask, he wasn't at his best.
Right.
Talk about that. That fascinates me.
Oh, yeah. Well, like I say, Matt they had just flown in the 4-time Italian world champion, who was an unbelievable arm wrestler. His name is Hermes Gasparini, if you want to look up some of his YouTube videos, but he's really, really good. And like I say, Matt destroyed him in the World Arm Wrestling League. 4 weeks later, he comes to Mississippi, and I destroy him. And like I was saying, it's kind of like I had restored an old vehicle or something, and everybody that walked by it said, you didn't do that. Yeah. Like I say, because I had just come out of nowhere at the time. I didn't have a YouTube channel. I was just coming into my own. I was winning a lot of tournaments. I went down to country band, and I got that title belt. And I was doing a lot of things, and like I said, the world didn't know about me at the time, but I was on the map after that match, and everybody's like, well, wait a minute now. Did he really just beat this guy, But yeah, like I say, it was kind of a disappointing feeling because, you work so hard, to achieve that goal. And then everybody said, a lot of people says that it wasn't real. But, as matches went on, they found out, I was definitely the real deal.
Right. Well, and since you've done that, I'm just thinking about the Kentucky Derby on Saturday. I don't know if you watched it or not, but this horse that was an 80-1 shot. Nobody thought he even, he wasn't even supposed to be there.
Came out of nowhere.
Yeah, somebody scratched, and so he gets in at the last minute, like 2 hours before it's time to go to the gate, and he ends up coming from behind, and he was such a nobody that as he's working his way through the field of horses, and you can see it from the overhead shot, he's moving way faster than everybody else, and so they're coming down the home stretch. The announcer is calling these front 2 horses, just these two horses, and then this horse comes from behind, and the announcer doesn't even see him until he's ahead of the 2 front runners, and he wins the Kentucky Derby at 80-1 odds, not even supposed to be there, just boom, And when I see something like that, when I see an underdog story like that, there are things in my life I relate it to, but my life has been nothing like yours. So when you think about being in that arena with those champions,
oh yeah,
what does it feel like to you to watch other underdogs do that kind of stuff?
Oh, I always had to root for the underdog. I remember I was just pulling so hard for Cincinnati to beat the Rams. If you're a Rams fan, I'm sorry. But, I was just pulling so hard. It just come out of nowhere, and it was doing so good, And, if you pull up my YouTube or if you pull up my name, you're going to see matches that, that I have lost. Last year, the guy that was ranked number 2 behind me in the country in the southern part of the states, he was going to pull the Texas State champion. And this was in Idaho. It was a pay-per-view event. And 4 days before the match, the guy from Texas backs out.
Oh, wow.
Well, I hadn't been doing nothing. This guy had been training to pull this Texas State stamp. Well, they called me and they say, hey, if we get you a hotel and a plane ticket, will you fly out to Idaho and pull him? I said, sure, I'm not going to pass up a free weekend. So I went out there and he demolished me. He beat me 3-0. But he didn't beat the same guy that's sitting here right now because I'm trained up right now.
Right.
So like I say, if you look me up, you're going to see matches that I've lost. But I guarantee you this too, I've just about bet my house on this. Whoever wins the Super Bowl this coming year is going to take a beating sometime that year.
Everybody plays up to the champ.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
All right, we're going to take our last break of the day. We're going to come back, land the plane with Wayne Withers and THERESE APEL. We'll be right back on 103.9 WYAB. All right, welcome back into the Clay Edwards Show. As we get ready to land this plane for the day, I just want to thank THERESE for coming in. I want to thank Wayne Withers for coming in and telling us an amazing story about his arm wrestling stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And THERESE may have a question to close with. I'm going to ask mine first here. Wayne, you're the king of the hill, basically. But who's out there that Wayne says, I need to beat this guy? Is there somebody that you consider the next peg up, or hey, you done beat the world champ?
I have won some. I have beat some really good guys. Like say in Atlanta last year, they invited me to the Nationals, and Ryan Baff was there. He's a 9-time world champ, highly considered the best 242-pound puller to ever compete in the world. And I beat him 3 times that day. that was a really big win for me. But if I could say around the world, Hermes Gasparini from Italy, the one that I said that Matt Mass took out, just because there's something about the guy. I'd really like to beat him. I don't really like the guy.
Yeah.
I like most all my brothers in arm wrestling, but there's something about the way this guy does his business that I would just really like to show him something on the table. So that would be my dream match overseas in Europe if I could pull him.
Got it. So, I mean, plus he kind of shunned you a little by being more interested in beating the guy that you had already beat.
Right,
than beating you.
He wanted to get Matt overseas after Matt had beat him in the World Arm Wrestling League for a match, and he didn't really show me the respect. So yeah, I'd love to get a shot at him. I would.
All right.
I hope that happens.
Yeah,
I want to know when that happens.
Great.
Keep us posted. All right. Well, look, man, we had a great show today. Therese, great to have you back in the studio.
Thanks. Good to be here.
Big man, Wayne, I appriciate it, brother. This has been fun, man. I want to keep up with you, man. You got my number. Let's stay in touch because I want to follow this, man. I think this is something that Mississippians, we need to know that one of our fellow Mississippians is out here doing big things,
right,
on a national stage.
And Clay and I have already talked about going to the Mississippi State Championships later on this year to see you compete.
Be in September, like I say. Any listeners out there that want to get into the sport of arm wrestling, on Facebook it's Mississippi Arm Fighter.
Got it.
And they can find us on there.
All right, brother. Well, we appreciate it. If you're listening to the podcast, you got to hear a little bit extra than anybody else. We'll see you tomorrow on the radio. Peace.
Thanks for listening. Tune in tomorrow at 7 a.m. as the Clay Edwards Show discusses all that is going on in and around the city of Jackson.
This concludes our broadcast day.
Right here on 103.9 WYAB.